and welcome to Mandy's Makings. Today we're going to do some components that could be put in chain. The different components could actually be made into chain. So this could be made into a chain if you make a bunch of these, or these could be made into a chain if you made a bunch of those. This would be a lot of chain and a lot of work. This is a hook clasp that you can use as part of your chain making process. So we're going to make components that, as you can see, could quite lovely be put together, either put together as you're working or put together with jump rings, and could be made into a wonderful chain. So let's get started with a list of materials. So you're going to need 26 gauge ParaWire, whatever, or wire of any sort, depending, and that's for this piece here. And you need just a little bit so you can use your scrap bin. It goes right in the middle here. Then you're going to need, I'm using 20 gauge wire today because that's plenty strong enough. And I have this zoomed right in. Let me zoom out just a smidge so that people can see what I'm doing. Okay, so you need round nose pliers, bent chain nose pliers. You're going to need a mandrel or something to put things around. You can use a pencil, it doesn't really matter. Flush cutters, for sure. Nylon jaw pliers for straightening your wire, and then I have a second pair of needle nose pliers. So, and you need a ruler for sure. Mine has both on it because I know it's super shiny, so it's hard to read, but I have both centimeters and inches on it, so we'll work in inches today. Alright, so let's get started. The first one we're going to do is this component here. Whoop, these little barrel components here. I've actually made several bracelets. They make great men's bracelets. You use the hook, and then you just make one of these ends bigger to hook the hook into, and they're sturdy and strong and simple and sleek, and men really love them. So let's show you how to do that little one. So for that particular one, we need 4.5 inches of wire of the 20 gauge, and I've cut just a couple so I can show you how to make a couple. So just going to straighten the wire, and I'm just 4.5 inches. So I have 4.5 inches of wire. So let's get the ruler out of the way. Yeah, no. So I need to go 1.25 inches approximately to here, and I'm going to stick my fingers against it. That's sort of a practice I have if I'm trying to make things consistent. And I'm sticking my fingers against it, and then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and move this out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to stick my round nose pliers at the size of loop I want, right at that spot where my fingers are, where I marked it, sort of. Okay? And then I'm going to take my pliers and bend them over. And bend it over. You know what we're doing, right? And I'm breaking its neck. So I've got a loop. Everybody see that? Whoops, so let's come in tighter now so you guys can see right close up what I'm doing. So I made a loop with a scarf. The guy with the scarf. His neck is, his sort of balloon head is sitting pretty close to above his body. It's not 100% perfect, but close enough. Okay, and now I need to wrap this little tail around this main core. Now, one of the things you need to know is when you're wrapping wire around same gauge wire, when you're using 20 gauge and 18 gauge, it's a little harder to do, but just go slowly, otherwise you could end up wrapping one over the other. Now let's use the other pliers. They tend to be out of the way a little bit more. Now if you want to attach this, sorry, I gotta say that too, to something, this is the time that you would have to, you'd put it in, pull this thing through, snap it in, see? And then it would attach, and then you would do the wraps, alright? So before you do wraps, attach. It's a little mantra, right? So I'm going to go around 1, 2. Now if it starts to pull where it's too far out, see how this one's a little higher than the other one? I'm going to take my second pair of pliers. It means my thing is getting too short. I don't have enough torque on it. 2, there we go, that's a bit better. And I do much better with my fingers, so 3, 4, there we go. So you do 4. Whoops, sorry about that, I was off camera for that. So I did 4 wraps basically, and I have this hanging out. So I need to cut off this back piece. And because I'm trying to be concise, I want just 4 wraps. And I'm just going to cut that off. Put that somewhere I'm not going to step on it. Yay. And I'm going to fix the head on this because I don't like where it's sitting. Put that in the center. Make my lollipop. And then I'm just going to tuck this in. There, tuck that in. Okay, so now at this point, you're just going to take and go, I can see that that's not sitting flat. Okay, so what you want to make sure is all your loops are close together, and that one loop here, I don't know if you can see it, it's sticking out just a smidge and it's not where I want it to be. So let's go around again. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go across here at a 90-degree angle. We're just going to bend it over. Ta-da! And yes, I did mark the wire a little bit, but that's going to be under a wrap, so I'm not even worried about it. See, none of us are perfect. Put your pliers in to make the same size loop. Again, wrap it around. Go behind. Okay, so this is a critical part. Again, if you need to attach it to something, attach it to something. The critical part is two things. One, that both these loops are facing the same way. That's not that critical. The second one is the amount of space you have between the bottom of the loop here, where my fingernail is, and the top of the coils here have to be minimal. You want them to be as little as possible, and if it's too much, just take your pliers and tweak down more, make the scarf go up higher. Because the idea is I'm going to wrap this over top of these coils here. So I'm just getting a double wrap, which makes it, say, if you look at this, it's pretty flimsy looking. This makes it much more chunky looking. So I'm going to go right across the top of those other wires. And then I'm going to do 1, 2, readjust my pliers because they're sliding. So I'm torquing a little bit. 3, 4. Look at that. Aren't we happy? The thing I'm not happy with is this and where it's sitting, so I'm just going to tweak that over a little bit. So I have this little bow tie. Look at that. So I need to just cut it off and wrap it around. So I'm going to cut it off a little bit longer than I need to right now. See, just a little bit longer. So that when I bring this around, now this is the harder part for me. I have to hold this in one hand. So I'm going to hold that higher up in the pliers to give me more torque without as much pressure. And I'm going to bring that around, and tuck it in. Make sure there's nothing sticking out. And I have my element. Okay? Now, I could go in just a little bit more, right there at the edge. Yeah, I don't want to do that, so. Okay, so you have your element. Oops, you have your element that I made, and it's pretty small. It's, not even half an inch. So that gives you an idea. So you'd have to make a bunch of them to go together, depending on what you put in between them. You could put a wrap bead between those, like I showed you before in a previous tutorial. Or you put these in between it. As you can see, starting to have fun, right? Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you how to make is this one here, which is, I call it the Celtic knot. It's not really a Celtic knot, but it has the same 4 wraps and 4 wraps as you can see on the other side. So we're going to take care of that next. Okay, we're going to start the next component, and this is the Celtic knot. So we start with 2 6.5-inch pieces of wire, and then we just grab a scrap piece of weaving wire, and I have this little tiny piece here. Like literally, it's a little tiny piece, and I'm just going to wrap around 1, 2, I'm just wrapping around both wires, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to take this other end and squish it in so they're both nice and tight, and bring it around the back. So both pieces of the wire are on the back of these two pieces of wire here. So let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see. So they're both to the back. I'm going to flip it over, and now I'm going to trim the excess weaving wire off. And this is too little to save now at this point, so I'm going to toss that out. It's too little to use for anything. So the idea is to finish those wires in the middle of the back piece here. So when I squish them down, let me grab a plier so I can squish with. Doesn't really matter which pliers you use as long as you use something to squish them down. And I'm just squishing the whole thing down. Now I need to make sure they're at the 3 1/4 mark. So I'm bringing my ruler up and I'm holding it and I'm just squeaking this down until it's at 3 1/4 mark, because I want this in the middle. So that's the 3 1/4 mark. So let's move this ruler out of the way. And I just have lots of tools laying around, so you know. So we're going to start on one side or the other. I usually start on the side that's closest to me. It's easiest. And I'm sort of keeping my fingers on that little wrapped wire bit, because the wires can still move. So I'm going to take my thumb and I'm just going to sort of round it out. And I'm going to round it around and back down. So I made this little loop. And I'm not sure why it's not focusing, but there we go. Okay. So that's one side of the top. So then I flip it and I hold on to it again because I don't want anything to move. And I take this piece here and I do the same thing. I just want a gradual bend. But then I take the bigger piece. Let's back out a bit again. Okay. So I'm taking the bigger piece and I'm rounding the whole thing because I need to feed that through now. So in this case it needs to go from the front to the back. Whoops, and I just slid the whole thing down. So put it back. And I'm pushing this in. Okay, it looks really funny right now, but that's okay. I'm going to take it and pull it straight down. So one's to the front and one's to the back, and they're being pulled down. Don't worry about kinking your wire. You can straighten it out. You're going to just wire wrap with it anyways. So I'm just grabbing my pliers at the very tip and I'm pulling now to make this knot smaller. So I don't want it that big. Okay, so I have this little knot, half of a knot. So let's grab the ruler quickly again just for a second to make sure I'm still in the 3 1/4 mark, and I am. So I'm good now. So now I get to do the other side. Okay, so I'm going to take this wire, move it out of the way, take this wire, move it out of the way. Not a lot, but enough that it's out of the way of the main wire that I'm working with. Okay, I'm just going to tuck that behind there. So they're both behind. The first wires I worked with are now behind the wires I'm going to work with. Okay, so I just put them behind. It's fine. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I just don't want the bend to be super crazy. So you can start with this bigger, it's fine. See, I can make it bigger to start with. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this side. And it's a little harder because there's other wires in the way, so just be patient with yourself. And I'm making this round. I'm rounding it out. And I'm putting it in and behind. So when you put it in behind, see, it's like this big wire mess. I'm putting my fingers back in that spot and I'm going to pull. I'm pulling that big wire. Okay, pulling this wire, pulling this wire. Now they don't match at the moment, so we're going to just take the pliers at the end and bring it in, bring it in. So that's a little closer to that one. I'm making sure they match, and I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to hold it in the middle again. And I'm going to bring it in. Whoop. Bring it in. Bring this one in a little bit more. I can see which one I have to pull. So this is the one I have to pull now. Because see, it's a little bigger. And bring it in. Okay, so we have a Celtic knot now. And it actually works kind of like a butterfly. It's like a hinge. It's kind of cool. It would make a great hinge, to be honest with you. Okay, so I'm putting this wire now that's on the top. Let's go in a little tighter now for this. I'm putting this wire that's on the top sort of alongside this wire that's this part of this round circle here. And I can see that it's, when I do that. Now if you see that one of them got too small, like this one here, I just take it all and I poke it in and squishy a little bit, and it brings it out a little bit. Okay? So I'm going to do that, and on this one, it's on the top one that goes across and sort of around the side of that. Okay? So now the ones that are underneath, I'm going to take my plier, and I'm just changing the angle that I'm holding it, and I'm just going to bend it right above that wire straight up at 90 degrees. So I want that coming out of the side of it. Okay, and now I'm going to do it at the other side, the one that's on the bottom, and as you can see this one's kind of messed up, and if it's a little messed up, it's okay, just grab this, hold onto your knot really tight, straighten out the wire a little bit with your wire straighteners. Okay, put that back, double check my knot, I'm okay with it. I'm going to take my pliers right again just above it, and I'm going to bend it at 90 degrees. So now you have the two bottom wires sticking out this way, and I bet you most of you can guess what I'm going to do next. I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go one more time because I want to see 4 wraps there. And the first one sort of just gets you started. It doesn't, whoops, don't slip, not now. I'm going to bring this around to the back so I can cut it off. Okay, let's do the other side. I'm holding everything still as I can. Okay, 1, there's, you see 2, 3, 4, and I'm pulling it to the back. Okay? So that's what I have so far. Yay! Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over and we're going to cut off the back pieces just like we did before. Cut them off. And I want them to sort of finish at the back there, so I'm cutting them off tight to the back. And then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to bring it around, make sure it's all squished in. And take my pliers and bring it around, make sure it's all squished in. I don't want any jagged edges sticking out at this point. So this is what I have. Okay, I have this little element. Now, just like we did in the other element, this little one here that we made, we're going to take this and go 90 degrees with the one wire. We're going to stick our pliers in. Stick our pliers in. Come on, focus. Let me back out just a little bit, maybe it'll help. I'm probably too close. Yeah. Okay, so stick our pliers in the size of the loop that we want, whatever that is for us, and we're going to bring our pliers around, bring it around and behind the element. So I'm bringing it around behind the element. Now there's a couple of things you got to pay attention to. One, if you need to attach it to something, you have to do it at this point. 2, this hole has to be really snug up. The circle has to be really snug up against this. So when I start the wraps here, I'm wrapping on top of these wraps. Okay, so let me just tweak this over just a bit more. Then grab a pair of pliers. I'm just going to grab my, sorry about that, a bit of a cough. Get these out of the way. Going to hold on to it, and then I'm going to wrap around it. Now I can tell that if I start this wrap right now, it's not tight enough, because it's just not. So I'm going to bring this around a little bit more. Just squeak it down towards the, I want it down really close to these other wraps. Okay? Kind of crucial. And at this point, if I needed to, I could slip on, I could just take this and put it in, see? Before I close it. And then I'm going to start wrapping. So what I want to do when I'm laying my first wrap is I want to pay attention to where the other wraps are underneath, and I'm laying that wrap literally on top of the other wrap as best I can. So there's 2, And I can see it's getting a little looser than I want it to be, so I'm just taking my pliers and squeaking it in. I could use my other pliers if I'm not getting it to the... Now if you pull too tight, it will slip between the other loops. So you can't do that. You just have to make it happy, make it lay down where you want it to. There we go. 2, 3, 4. Now with this one, I could take two choices here. I could cut it off or I could squeak it around. I'm going to just cut it off for the sake of ease. And I'm going to cut it just past, I want to go just past where it would be the middle, so that it'll wrap around and sort of secure itself a little bit here. So I'm just going just past there. I'm just going to get rid of that little piece. Okay, and then I'm going to take my pliers, and it's really close to the knot, but that's okay. And I'm going to tuck that in. So that's all tucked in. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and we'll have it done. So let's do it one more time. So we're going to 90 degrees right at the end of the coil. It's really important that you do it right at the end of the coil. It'll get you the closest you can without it being a problem. Going over, taking my time, going behind, and then we bring it in so that it's right on top. Now it's not in the center, so that's okay. So we'll center it. Don't worry about where the scarf goes. We can fix the scarf and bring it down. Okay? If you need to attach something to this side, you have to do it then. This is when you do it. Just a reminder, because I've ruined so many pieces like this. I've done a piece and then forgot. So the good thing is that if you want to, you could wrap these ends here, and then when you're doing these ends, you can attach them as you go along, and then you don't have to worry about it with a more complicated piece. It's up to you. But just remember, you got two holes you got to fill. Or you could just use jump rings to attach all of your pieces. You could put them beside each other like this with jump rings between them, and that would be great. Okay? So let's pull this down a little bit, because it's not going to start where I want it to. Okay. And then I'm going to go around and going to lay that first one on top of the other ones that are there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can see that that's got a little bit more there to go, so that we can be all equal and good. So again, I can continue wrapping that around a little tiny bit more, and then I'm going to cut it off, and then I'm going to tuck it in. Tuck it in, tuck it in. Tuck it in, tuck it in. So there's your component. So there's a sort of a Celtic knot piece that's kind of fun. And just so you know, this planning to put it all together, these components are going to go together. And I've done this component here with square wire with the eye that I've created. You can't see it very well here. There's way too much light. Let's turn the light off here. See if you can see it better. There you go. So there's an eye I've created, and these components are going to get attached to make a bracelet, because this is how big it is on my wrist. Okay, so there's your dragon eye. It's a blue dragon eye, and it's really cool and sparkly and wonderful. Okay, so this is going to be a component to a bracelet, and I'm just teaching you how to make these small components. Sorry about the light. There we go. To make these small components so that you can do whatever you want with them. So, alright, so we have this component and this component, and now we have one more thing to do, and that's the hook. And that's what this looks like. Okay, so let's do the hook. So for the hook, I need a 6-inch piece of wire. So I'm going to straighten my wire, like always. I'm going to measure out 6 inches using my trusty ruler, and I'm going to cut it flat side up. There we go. So I have move my wire out of the rest of it out of the way so I don't hit it. Okay, so now I'm going to go at 2.5 inches on my ruler, so you can see what I'm doing. 2.5 inches, and I'm sticking my thumbnail sort of where the 2.5 inch mark is Hopefully you can all see that. And that's where I'm going to fold it. So I'm going to just take my thumbnail. You can take your pliers at that place if you want. And I'm going to fold it over. And I'm going to bring it down. And I'm going to squish it. Now, you can leave these wider or narrower. The tips, this one here that I showed you is got a wider one. Let's see if I can find one with a narrower tip. I like them with wide tips. There's a little bit narrower tip. So you can, and I love these findings. I use them for lots of other things. They're great for leather cording. You can make this bottom loop really big and stick leather cording through it. So lots of fun. Okay, so I'm squishing the end gently. And I want to mar it, and it tends to go tweak and it twists. Okay, just want to lay them down beside each other. Come on. Alright, I'm happy with that. So then I'm going to take this, and this bottom end of this wire, I want to measure up 1 inch. So from the bottom of that, the short wire, I'm coming up 1 inch, and then I'm going to bend it towards the top. So it makes a 90-degree angle. See, like that? Now, there's a couple of things you can hold on to this. If you use your pliers, it actually is hard. It gives you a hard time holding on to 2 wires. I like using my nylon jaw pliers because I find it holds onto the 2 wires a little bit better. I can keep the spacing decent. I'm happy with it, so I'm going to bring it right down as low as I can, and I'm going to go around 1. Can you guess? Oh, and now it's not laying very well, so I'm going to have to change hands. I'm going to hold this in this one. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to use tools versus your hands. And I can see that this is wanting to twist on itself funky. So right here at the base. See how that's wanting to twist? So I'm going to squeak this down a little tighter. And I'm going to do this first wrap. Now we're doing the same gauge wire against the same gauge wire. So it does tend to wiggle and squirm and not want to lay where you want it to. That's okay. Just be patient with yourself. There we go. 1. I don't like how tight that is. I think it can go tighter, so I'm just going to give it a little squeak. I'm just squeaking it. I'm just taking my pliers and sort of running them along that wire, see? And making it tighter. 2, 3, 4. And I don't know if you noticed, but it twisted up top. That's okay. Just take the other side, take this side, and untwist it. And you take 2 sets of pliers if you need to, and just flatten it back out. It's not going to hurt it. It just twisted because of the torque on this wire here. That happens all the time. It's not a big deal. Okay, so now I need to cut that off. That little piece that's left, we need to tuck it in. Just a little bit. So I'm just holding on to it here. And I'm just squeaking it in. Squeaking around. Okay? Again, same thing. Bend it over at 90 degrees. Make this loop whatever size you want. So if you're using this hook, let's say for leather cording, and you want to take the leather through and then back and then wire wrap the 2 pieces of leather together, or suede cording or whatever, you can make this loop a lot bigger. So you can make it like really big. So depending on what you're doing with it and what you're attaching to it, you can make it different sizes. I'm going to be using this as part of my project that I'm making, so actually let's make this one a little bit bigger. There we go. Because I've got like 5 or 6 already made. Again, we need to bring this so that it's, and if we need to attach it to something at this point, this is when we attach it to something. Okay. We hold on to it, and then we bring the tail down and around this other piece. 1. Trying to lay it on top. 2. And I could have gone a little longer with that one. And I think it's because of where I started. You see how there's an extra twist in here that shouldn't be here? That's okay. I'll still use this one. And just squeaking this around. But it's being stubborn, and see how it wants to poke up funny? I gotta bring it back down. So it'll lay on the other ones. There we go. That's much happier. Okay, so we have this straight piece here, or sort of straight piece here, and then we have this nubbly piece here. Alright, and this is how you make your hook. You just take something. I'm going to grab a pencil. I have a big pencil. Doesn't really matter what you use, as long as it's round. This isn't even round. It's got little sides to it. I don't know if you can see that it has like sides to it. Doesn't really matter, as long as it's close. And you're going to take it and you're going to bend it over. And the whole object of the ball game is to bend it over so that you're bringing the two ends sort of to meet, to touch right there. Take your pen out, or whatever it is you're using. Take your pliers or your fingers or whatever you'd like, and right where the end of the piece is here, you're going to take it and turn it so that it does this, so that you could literally hook it like that. And because I use that square edge thing, I got this funky looking round. There we go. Use a round item, okay? Then you take your very tips of your pliers, put them on the ends, and curl it up. So your hook changes to that. And you now have a great hook that you can use for securing projects. And it hooks into other links. So I don't have a big enough link here right now, but the whole idea is it does that. It just hooks into a link. See? And they're great for necklaces, for bracelets, and because it's the 2 wires, it's really strong. Sorry about all the wiggling of the camera. But anyway, so there's your last piece. Again, make the size loop the size you need to do what you need to do it with, okay? And if you need to make this a really big loop, then I suggest you make the wire longer. I went with the minimum. I probably would go with 6.5 next time, because I think that this is just a little too short. I'd like a couple more wraps because of the way that this whole thing twisted. See how it twisted kind of funky doodle in there? Twisted kind of funky doodle. Let me show you the one that's not twisted funky doodle. Okay, so there's one that's not twisted funky doodle. See? See if I can get it to focus for you. So it lays pretty good. Yeah, it could be more perfect, but it's really damn close. If you're looking that close at anything I'm wearing jewelry wise, then you got a bit of a problem anyways. So there we go. Okay, so those are the 3 components. You have this component, you have your Celtic knot component, and you have your little link component. Those can be put together in a chain. I did sort of a little sampling chain, so I was like messing around to see what they would look like together. So I did 2 of the regular ones with one of these, just to give you an idea how the size of it is on your wrist. It's not very big. It's really sturdy. This is not going anywhere. Like I could, I don't know, I could do anything in this pretty well and not have to worry about taking it off. So once I put the eye on, that's a different ballgame. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like, share, and subscribe. Below. Make comments if you have questions about any of this stuff, and I hope this helps you in your wire making endeavors and your making chains and different things like that to go with the pieces that you're making. So take care from Annie's Making, saying keep on making.